Hello and welcome to The Last Word on Spurs. We do hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Yes, it is going to be another one of those therapy podcasts. Records gone, records smashed. That's Last Word on Spurs for you. Delighted to be joined by three great returning guests. If you're listening to us for the first time, of course, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. We are, of course, on Twitter. We're on Last Word on Spurs, of course, across Instagram and Facebook too. And joined by three great returning guests. We hoped it was going to be in better times of Spurs, but Spurs right now, as everybody knows, just really unpredictable to say the least. Back alongside me, delighted to have him back alongside me, smiling, but I know deep inside, lots of pain with Spurs. It's the wonderful Richard Cracknell. Cracks. Difficult to know where to start with that one.
Wow. Yeah, Rick, it's, with all the political turmoil we've currently got in the UK, isn't it nice to have the escape of football? You know, because it's that really was today. It really felt like what's going on in Westminster at the moment is just chaos and turmoil, and nobody seems to know what they're doing. And then, you know, you tune into Spurs, and lo and behold, more of the same. It's just wow. Yeah, we just seem to be in a difficult moment. It's people overcomplicate football. You get people like Thomas Tuchel who, you know, they start quoting this, that, and everything else. But most of it's for the birds, to be honest. There's basic, simple building blocks, the basic DNA of playing football that always has been and always will be. And if you was to make a pie chart of football, probably 75% of that is made up with do the basics and give you everything. That's it. And then the other 25% is made up of some amounts of skill, some amounts of tactics, luck, because it's not an exact science, but most of it is just do the basics and just give everything. And that's where we're a million miles off at the moment. So to stay on the political theme, let's get back to basics and just start doing that right. And then, you know, from now, everything cascades forward. So it's basics, Rick. That's all it is at the moment.
Yeah, can I just say, I mean, there's lots of comments already flying through about the manager, about the club, about the style of football. I just want to be clear, you know, regardless of the manager, regardless of who's in charge, the most important thing to all of us is always Tottenham Hotspur, right? We want to see Spurs do well. We want to see Spurs win. You know, if we feel a manager isn't performing, we'll say it on Last Word on Spurs. We always have. We don't hold back. I think what we always try and do is also offer a sense of rationalism at a time when you recall straight after a game, and it can't always be easy to do that. So again, we will always dive into tactics, the manager, the players, the board. We've never hidden away from that Last Word on Spurs, and we never won't. You know, that's what the show is here for.
Correct.
So we aren't going to, like I say, be looking to sugarcoat or get away from the obvious facts that we're watching with Spurs right now. And that's what we're going to bring you on this show.
Rick, you apply two tests. Sorry to jump back in because I'm a little bit angry this evening. You apply two tests to squads, players and managers. Number one is the Jose Mourinho test. So is your current manager what he was doing? What would you say about him if it was Jose Mourinho? Because he was probably the most divisive manager that we've had in the last 25, 30 years, apart from the man in the raincoat who happened to win a cup for us. So how would you feel if that was served up to you today by Jose Mourinho? And with players, would you be as forgiving with them if they were Harry Kane making those mistakes? So there's two theories, two sciences that you apply to people. So if you can judge players by the Harry Kane forgiveness and the Jose Mourinho condemnation, then you're being balanced and fair. So that's all I ever try to do when I come on. So I'm waffling now. Carry on.
I just want to be clear though, we're not hiding away from anything here. We're not avoiding to tackle the big issues. We'll always try and tell it as it is during Last Word on Spurs. And we just won't use the foul language that people want us to. That's just the reality of it. We'll try and apply some decent common sense when we're analysing Tottenham. And I'm hoping that's hopefully enough for people. And again, thank you so much for all of your incredible support this evening. I can say it's never easy having to watch that performance and then come and actually watch us for an hour and a half, despite the wonderful guests we have on, to come and analyse Spurs for a good hour and a half and sometimes near on 2 hours. So delighted to be welcoming back two great returning guests to Last Word on Spurs. That is my son in the background, as you can hear, as angry as I am about the Spurs performance today. So you will have to forgive us there. He still can't get over it, and nor will I. So you will hear him probably in the period of the next hour and a half as my beautiful wife tries to get him down good luck to her on that one. We're all trying. Back alongside Last Word on Spurs, we've got the wonderful presenter, Rob Howard from Capital One. Rob, not sure what we were presenting tonight. Probably the answer is not much. How are you, Rob? Lovely to have you back on.
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. I think last time I was meant to be on, and then I had appendicitis and had to go and have an emergency operation. And I would genuinely say that
the wrong show and wrong week, Rob, didn't you? I'm so sorry.
that 9-hour wait in A&E was actually genuinely a bit more pleasant than watching that game tonight. Yeah, I'm all right. It's just, I think I was saying to you, Ricky, as soon as the team sheets came out, because there were these rumours, weren't there, early on, that was it Guimaraes and Joe Linton were injured, and then suddenly they not only did they appear in their team sheet, but then we were missing Højbjerg and Romero out of there. I was like out of nowhere, and it was like, hang on a minute, they've got their two best players back, and we lost two of our best ones. So yeah, it wasn't great. The weather was quite fitting, wasn't it? Really.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just didn't expect the actual performance to be as worse than the weather. It was actually getting that bad. Talk about weather and a man who's battled his way to be, and we can't thank him enough. He's gone through a power cut, storms, having to witness that. I think he was lucky, actually. I think he lost the coverage after a good hour, and probably I said to TJ off there, you're probably doing yourself a favour with that. His record is gone, but like I say, his opinions and his optimism definitely is. And we've got the wonderful actor TJ Ramini back on Last Word on Spurs. TJ, where do we start with that?
Well, it's lovely to see you. I'll start with that. It's lovely to see you, and thank you for having me back on the show. And it's a pleasure to be on with Rob and with Richard. Yeah, it was a tough watch. As you correctly stated, I only managed to watch half of it, as there was a power cut at half time. So thanks for that, whoever was controlling the power at the time, because according to you and several other people who were texting me through the game, I didn't really miss much. I know we're going to get into it. But I promised my dear friend Richard Albam, is another North London brother of mine, long-suffering Tottenham fan. I'm just going to say this before we get on with the show. It's our best start to the season in 60 years. And now over to you, Ricky.
God, where do I go from that? And I've got to try and I've got to try and balance it out after that. TJ, love to have you back on. Rob as well, Rich. Look, I'm going to be honest again and say we will address everything tonight. There's no sugarcoating here on Last Word on Spurs. There's lots to get into, and we are going to get into it. But just a reminder for those of you that obviously do know that we are delighted to be sponsored by the Beavertown Corner Pin. That is the Beavertown Bang opposite your South Stand. Now, we are hoping to have some really, really good feature shows coming your way over Christmas, as long as Spurs don't upset us too much. And the next show for their home win away feature, if you fancy it, I can know right now the last thing you want to do is check out Tottenham. Is they have still got tickets available from Marseille away in the Champions League. And you can go to that right now by going to the following website of, as always, www.beavertownbrewery.co.uk/pages/corner-pin. Once again, guys, thank you so much. There's already a good 600 of you in here watching us live, having to try and reflect on the back of a really, really dismal performance. Rich, let's kick off with you. Spurs' 100% home record is brought to an abrupt end by Newcastle. You know, the thing, again, I will say is that when you look at just how poor that performance was against United, we all wanted a reaction. We really, really didn't. We actually started quite bright, but typical Spurs at the moment, a couple of really poor individual errors, real poor defensively set pieces from Tottenham, and we just simply couldn't recover. So how do you kind of overview that game, Rich?
Well, I mean, as TJ rightly said, best start to a season, but you know, a season's 38 games, and I think the writing's been on the wall from day dot this season. The performances have been way off. Way off. There's been a few odd half an hours here and there. Even today, towards the end, that, you know, it was brighter. It wasn't right, but it was a little bit more what you would expect to see. But the Chelsea draw away, so lucky. West Ham away, we nearly lost it at the end. We have rode our luck, and you know what? In a league, you can't ride your luck, Rick. It will find you out eventually. 38 games tells you exactly where you are. So, thankfully, we had some luck at the start of the season. The performances have just not been good enough. And again, I'll refer you back to what I said earlier. If this was Jose Mourinho, the whole tone among a lot of the fan base, and by the way, there's quite a few at the moment that are really beginning to question Conte and what he's doing. I think it's a multi-layered thing. I don't think he's got the personnel at the moment when he's got a couple of key injuries. So, there's that to be looked at. And he keeps mentioning that we're 2 or 3 windows away from getting in players that he needs. So, he's just not got the personnel. And the football at the moment, it's coming home to roost what we've seen all season. We've been found out by teams that actually come and put it on us. Yeah. So he needs to find a way to get into those players. He's paid big bucks, Rick, big bucks to get into those players and say to them, this just ain't good enough, boys. I'm sorry, this is not good enough. Even senior players, certainly from Lloris, I mean, that was just woeful today. I think he set the tone right through the team with his antics today. Kane and Son, them early chances we had, they're bagging them for fun last season. Where's that Kane and Son gone? Basuma. Is that Basuma's brother, to quote a famous saying from a couple of seasons ago? Because that's not Basuma from Brighton. Sanchez from Ajax. Like I said before on the show, the amount of fans of Ajax that messaged me when we got him and said, wow, what a player. Well, where's that player? So there's just too many out there not giving enough, not doing the basics right. And the first thing I would do, Rick, and I've been sort of pussyfooting around this on shows the last few weeks, Lloris, captaincy gone. You can't have a captain in goal, Rick. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work for me. I know we've had winning captains at World Cups with Dino's off and even Lloris himself. But you need somebody in the middle of the park to get round the players, to go over to the bench, to speak to Conte when things ain't right. And Conte tells Højbjerg would be perfect. How much did we miss him today? Get Højbjerg there as a captain. I'd make him captain. And then he can go in and he can go over to Conte and Conte can say to him, get in that back 4 and tell Dyer X. Get in the back 4 and tell Royal Y. Just start. He can be your voice on the pitch. Lloris can't get round the pitch. And then today, them errors from Lloris have absolutely spread through that team like wildfire. Like wildfire. He was so off of it today. It was ridiculous. So this is what I'm saying. Basics. These are basic things. Fight and just your 10-yard passes. How many of those astray? Just a simple 10-yard pass. Or, a little ball. It's all these weird balls over the top that are floated and, are so easily read and cut out. Every 50-50 we don't make. We've got that's where we've got to start. We've just got to get back and start doing that right, Rick. It really is. And they wanted it more. It was a bright 10 minutes, Agreed. But then they just wanted it more. Simple as that. And that's not acceptable, Rick. Just not acceptable.
Agree. Rob, let's come over to you. It's back-to-back defeats now for Spurs, who really annoyingly failed to capitalise on a lot of our rivals around us dropping points. The likes of course, United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal. It's just a really frustrating weekend. And I think that Crack said there, the promising start we had was absolutely ruined by bad errors to go 2-0 down. And to give the team a bit of credit, there was lots of energy in that second half to some degree. But apart from the one goal that we did score, we didn't really create much from open play. And everybody in the summer that was having a go at me saying, we don't need a lock picker. We've got wing backs in our squad. I've said it again on this show, and I keep on saying it. If your wing backs are not good enough, what do you expect? And this is the frustration with Spurs. We're really not in a good moment right now, Rob. Where does the blame lie for you? Make up what you can about the performance for us. What do you think of it all?
Well, I think today, I think the start actually looked it was quite lively, and we had those chances. I think Kane and Son had a good one as well, and it kind of looked like that they were going to maybe control it a bit, and then we were just going to hit them, which is kind of a bit Conte ball, and it actually kind of looked like, okay, we're going to get a few here, and then the problem is Newcastle are a really good team. They are one to watch this season. I think with no European football in the weeks, they're playing half as much football as all the other teams around them. And if you just gift them 2 goals from the off, I think that they concede less than a goal a game on average so far this season. They're we lost Ricky.
He's gone. Well, that's it. We've taken it over. We've taken it over ourselves now.
Or I can right.
We make it.
Anyway,
make
Rob,
a few changes around it. Oh no, he's back.
Stop talking
He's back.
about
Hello,
him.
mate.
Stop talking about him. He's back now. You
please
say
carry
it
on,
to his
Rob.
face, Rob. Go on.
That's been
We'll
coming for a
continue
while,
this
Rob, I
chat
tell you.
later, guys. Anyway, nice to see you, Ricky. Yeah, that's the problem. Newcastle are really good. They're a really good, solid team, and I think, as I said, they concede less than a goal a game. And it's like if you give them 2 goals just before you even start, and then you throw in a monsoon at half time, making quick Conte transition football very hard. It's not going to work. You're not going to win. It reminded me a lot, actually, of, can you remember last year the home game against Wolves, and we just gave them 2 early goals. It's 2 mistakes.
Very similar.
And
Very
then
similar.
they were exactly a similar thing. We're a solid defensive team, and we just spent the rest of the game trying to break them down. And it's not many teams can do that. Can come back from 2 down against many teams, let alone a team like Newcastle who don't let it in. And I don't. It was a really hard game because I don't know if you take those 2 mistakes out of it, who knows what would have happened. But then likewise, we should. I love Lloris, but these mistakes are they're happening more and more and more, aren't they? And for every great shot stop he'll do against like United at the moment, there seems to just be a bit of a clangor happening. So it's every other game at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, like you said there, Rich, for you, that the captain sets the precedence for the team. And you need to look at that captain and you need to see a leader there and someone you can rely on. And in the big moments, and don't get me wrong, he does make some great saves, Lloris. The worry is that you can see today a mistake and we look so fragile. And this is a Spurs side that I think had won the last 11 at home, the last 8, in the Premier League. And you just think, why are we looking so fragile? And Newcastle are a good side. I must say that Newcastle played ever so well today. I don't think there can be a debate about where the point should have gone. Newcastle firmly deserved them. This is about Spurs and their issues in terms of tactical, player-wise, not having enough from the bench, that we're in the mess that we are in. And TJ, just to bring you in, as the boys have alluded to, look, it was a really, a really good start from Spurs. We give the goals away. Kane pulls one back. And the attacking onslaught that we hoped would happen never really came. And for your sake, like I say, not watching it, you've probably done yourself a favour. But as I keep on saying, I have to keep making this point. We really miss someone like Kulusevski that was going to open the lock, pick the lock, break a team down. And when you don't have a player like that in your squad and you haven't got the wing backs that are good enough to break a team down, you're going to suffer. And I think that's where Spurs are right now. They haven't quite got the squad. Conte has said as much in his post-match reaction to Sky. He's asked for more time in terms of saying that he's going to need a lot more time, a lot more windows to get to the squad to where it wants to be. What's your reaction to it all, TJ? Manager, players, result? How do you sum it up?
Big question. And just to, again, add my agreement with what Rich and Rob and of course yourself have said thus far. One thing that's really interesting to me about this sport in general, at this level, at the elite level, and not just Tottenham, is what a difference, it's a critical difference, confidence makes. So if we look at Newcastle, and we've all been praising Newcastle, and I've got a couple of friends here in LA, English lads, who are Newcastle fans, and I know them, I play football with them. I play football twice a week. And I was saying to these guys about a month ago now, I could actually see Newcastle making top 4 this season because of the points that we were making. They're a great team, and also they don't have to worry about Europe. I also think they have an excellent coach in Eddie Howe. I've always been a fan of his. And so what I wanted to say is that, yes, they have acquired some great players, right? Guimaraes has come in and really made a difference. And sometimes players like Kulusevski came in and just, so did Bentancur, just looked like he'd been playing in the Prem for years. I remember when we were very close to getting Bruno Fernandes, and we ended up with Gedson Fernandes, and Bruno went to United. And again, just looked like he was suited to that league. And Kulusevski is a wonderful, wonderful footballer. He's young and he's aggressive and he's extremely confident. He always backs his ability to beat a man. And we've talked about this before. His ability to beat a defender on the outside, take it on his stronger left foot and then take it on his right foot and either cross it or just put it in the back of the net himself. He's really confident. And I think what that does is not only does it break through stubborn defenses, which we struggle with, but also it just inspires all the other players. Or maybe I could try that. Maybe I'll take this guy on. And you can see that when the confidence isn't in the team, this rot just makes its way through the team. And of course, to Richard's point about Hugo, and we love Hugo. What a servant of the club, and the saves that he's made over the years. Some of them are absolutely extraordinary. The saves that he made on Wednesday were remarkable, but we shouldn't be facing that many shots on goal. And I would argue as well that in this day and age, when there just seem to be a plethora of really talented goalkeepers, like, you know, I wake up very early and I watch all the games, especially if they affect us. So I watched the Arsenal Southampton game this morning. I watched the Chelsea United game. Like, I watch all the games. No disservice no disrespect to the other teams that aren't kind of in and around the top of the table, but those are the games that I watch because they're most immediately going to affect Tottenham. And you just see all these goalkeepers, and I can't even remember their names, making all these unbelievable saves. But if you look at Ederson's pass to Haaland, yes, what's that, 80 yards? And like, ping, and the guy doesn't even look down. He doesn't even need to look over his shoulder. He'll just look down. 3 seconds later, the ball's at his feet and it's in the back of the net. Lloris is so far away from having any kind of ability with his feet. If you look at Kepa yesterday, just dribbling it around, you know, Marcus Rashford, and no problem playing one-touch passes. That's so important, especially if we want to play in the way that Conte wants us to play. Yeah. If those passes, again, like Richard was saying, if those 5-10 yard passes are not performed with perfection, accuracy, crispness, positivity, you're going to crumble. You will make a mistake and they will score. And that's exactly what happened. But again, to look at Newcastle and say, yes, they brought in a couple of good players, but where's the development? Like, again, like the chaps were saying, why isn't the manager turning the players that we currently have? Where the hell has Almiron come from? He was a joke. He wasn't fit. Honestly, he wasn't fit. They bring on the oranges and he'd be like, look down and go, oh, I brought grapefruits. Like, he couldn't get anything right. And then all of a sudden, he's like one of the best wide players in the league. Same with Joe Linton. Joe Linton, what the hell? Like, Linton, your belly button, he was useless. And then all of a sudden, he's this unbelievable force up and down the pitch. He's on the left, he's on the right, he's through the middle, he's defensive, he's attacking. Why aren't we doing that with our players? And then I'll open it up to you guys, because that really is what miffs me. Yes, we want to buying players is always exciting, right? But we don't have a squad. You can't just develop the guys we already have.
I think there's a massive argument, isn't it, here, in regards to the development of players, you know, where Spurs are right now. We are, as Conte keeps saying, we're in the middle of a process. I mean, what's clear, Rich, is that it's a shocking week for the club in general. You know, the manner of the goals, again, we can see now just really, really unacceptable. You know, and I think you've been alluding to it. We've been pushing our luck now for a number of games this season, and results now are catching up with us. When you look at the fact that the reality of the last few weeks, you know, now we've lost 3 of our last 5 in the Premier League. It is true that the results really have kind of followed the correlation in the direction of where our performances are going. Like you said at the start of the show, the performances are now catching up to the results. And that's the reality. Yeah. You can't keep cheating your way out of games and expect to keep getting 3 points. And it is, you know, unfortunately, coming home to roost that there's still a lot of work to be done here. And it is a process. And it's whether we, as fans, are going to give Conte the time to be part of that process to help us to get to where he needs to be and where we want to be. Do you think he'll get that time, and does he want to make that time to make this work in general, Rich?
Well, I think it's a two-pronged thing, Rick. At the moment, you know, he's being given chicken shit, so you're getting paid the big money, make some chicken soup, but you're not. So, you know, and the club need to realise that there's more work to be done and there's more money to be put into this and the squad to be built. So, but that's you know, that comes January and that comes next summer again when we look to our upgrade. At the moment, we can't do that. So we can only play the hand that's dealt us. So Conte at the moment, I just think he bitches and whines a little bit too much with things like today. Oh, you know, this is 2 or 3 times now. We're a couple of windows away. We've still got such a rebuild to do. That's true, but if you're a player in that dressing room, do you want to hear that? Because to me, any work, if you're a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, fine actor, fine radio presenter, and a fine Bentancur lookalike, from your boss, all what you want to hear is you being talked up, even if it isn't the truth. you need to be made to feel 10 foot tall. Conte would be better served to come out and say, we're in a difficult moment, but these are good players I've got here. This is a good squad of players. They are better than this, and I'm challenging them to step up and be better. But he's, again, it's almost Mourinho-like. He's throwing them under the bus. This squad's not good enough, and I need another 2 or 3 windows. So, if you're getting your boots off and having a shower and you're hearing that coming through on the wires, but he's saying that, how are you going to feel as a current player there? Is it me he's talking about? Is it him he's talking about? The players, it's like any workplace. There'll be, well, it don't sound like he much fancies me. So, he's just not making them feel, the ones that are there, he's just not making them feel 10 foot tall enough. Make them feel that. Be a little bit more positive about them. Try and talk them up. Try and build some confidence in them. Get the basics right. Get them running through walls for you. Then when you get to January, you go up and knock on the chairman's office and you say to him, Mr. Chairman, look, I've got him doing as much as I can. In fact, I've got him overperforming. A bit like Newcastle today and the players that TJ alluded to. They're pulling up trees and you couldn't get a tune out of them. Xhaka at Arsenal. I was absolutely delighted to see him playing. Now, wow, he's a different player because he's got him playing. But so then Conte, goes to the board in January and says, I've got these players playing well enough, but, how long can I get that tune out of them for? I need an upgrade. I need a better quality player. And then it's down to the board to trust that and not turn around and say, yeah, but they're doing well with 3rd or 4th. You've got to trust Conte and Paratici's judgment to know that that's only something that they're just sort of getting out of them, and that the quality, the bar needs to be raised higher in certain positions. So it's a two-pronged thing at the moment, Rick. I just don't like the way he's talking about the current squad, even if they're not good enough. And the board need to realise that and recognise that and back his judgment when the windows come.
I mean, there's other, obviously, debates that feed into this. There's other narratives. The fact that, as well, we have got 4 key players injured, as Richie Smith says on the screen here. Kulusevski, Romero, Richarlison, obviously, and Højbjerg. You take them out, and it is a completely different system that Conte is having to play. And then again, like I say, the other aspect is that Conte's yet to commit to Spurs, and he does seem to be keeping his options open, which, again, bearing in mind, obviously, Spurs in the summer, giving him 6 significant signings. One, obviously, of course, in Udogie that's gone back on loan. Again, there'll be lots of different debates over whether those 6 players are good enough to actually affect Spurs' first team. And again, I'll hold my hands up and say, look, you can make your own judgment on that. But David Ellis sent a message into Last Word on Spurs that I just do want to read out here. He said, we lost to a team with Dan Burn, Shelvey, Amaron, Willock and Longstaff. Don't ever tell me it's not Conte's fault. How plays to Newcastle's strengths? Spurs' strength is attack, not defence. So why play so negatively? It's puzzling and it's dull. Now, again, I will say that on Last Word on Spurs, we've been here, and like I say, we've been here since Pochettino in terms of obviously producing the shows. We've overseen Mourinho, we've overseen Nuno. We're here overseeing Conte as well. We've been there with Poch. It does feel, coming over to you, Rob, that I think we're trying to work out if Spurs' ability to get results when they're not at their best is a growing sign of maturity under Conte, or whether it is simply an unsustainable approach, because the 2 last games suggest the latter. And I keep saying this, that, overall, the league, you find out where you want to, the league is where you are expected to be eventually. So I think the performances, results have caught up with us. What do you feel for you, Rob? Is Conte's style of play unsustainable, or is it a fact that he doesn't have the players to be able to play the style that he wants at Tottenham?
I think it's a little bit of both. I do feel for him a little bit. As you say, those injuries are massive. If you take, you look at Arsenal's team and you take their 4 best players out of it, or 4 of their big leaders, then they're going to struggle, which is basically what happened to them at the end of last season. They lost 2 or 3 and we ended up getting 4th. I feel a little bit. I feel like the United game and today's game were sort of very different. Where United was, I thought we looked knackered. Oh, here we go. He's now DJ's on.
I thought we was entering the Matrix. Then there was 2 of you, and then there was 1. Ricky came back double on the screen. If you're listening on audio later down the line, those on YouTube saw it. There was two Rickies. This one's not enough. Then TJ went. Then Rob went. So it's
bit
just me and you, Ricky.
bit like our tactics. Absolutely clueless right now. TJ's coming back. Rob's coming back in. The boys are back. I don't know what's happening there. Just like Conte's tactics, unpredictable. I don't know what's going on. It is absolutely falling apart. And again, thank you so much for all this support. Rob, I will let you carry on there. So just to answer that question for you, is the tactics unsustainable, or is it a case that we just don't have the players to implement the tactics Conte wants us to?
I think the tactics are just about sustainable. I don't think they're the most exciting that can ever be, but it relies on two things. Conte ball. It relies on being solid at the back and not making bad mistakes, which is what seemed to happen today. And then the United game, which I actually thought was the other thing, which is, as Rich was saying, it really relies on like precision. It's quick transition and it's moved from back to front really quickly, and it's like one touch passing and you just get up really quick. And I thought against United, I thought we were better today at the start at least. But at United, we just looked so tired. And I thought like we couldn't control the ball, we couldn't string these passes together. And you had like players like Bentancur, who's been brilliant and is very technical, just looked so leggy from about half an hour in. So I was glad today at least to see, at the start it kind of seemed a bit more on it. But I think Conte ball is quite a hard sell if it's all about limiting the opposition's big chances and making 2 or 3 a game yourself and scoring them. And at the moment, we've got we missed those couple of early chances, and then it's not even not being defensively tight. We just literally gave 2 goals up to Newcastle today. And then one thing I had today, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but it seems to be a bit of a tactic in the first half. We're going long quite a lot. We weren't going for Kane. It seemed to be Son going for a lot of headers. And you got Son going up against Dan Burn, who I think is he 6'7". You've got Botman, who I think is 6'5", and Shah, who's 6'4". And you're like, well, that's not really going to work, is it? It's not really going to happen. So I don't know at the moment. I really was a full-blown Conte believer, and I still am, and I think he's great. But at the start of the season, when people were saying we're riding our luck a bit, I was kind of thinking, no, relax. It's XG. This is what he does. We don't create a lot, but we're so solid at the back, and it feels like not creating a lot has stayed. But I don't know if it's fatigue or whatever it is, but it feels a bit like those errors are sneaking in. Like Dyer, for the first time since Conte's been here, has started looking a little bit shaky at the back, which, we haven't seen that for a good, what year from him or something like that. He's been so solid. And so I think everyone's hope was, the defense would stay good and the creativity would go up a little bit. And it kind of feels like it's going the other way, with the creativity staying the same, where we look like we'll score 1 or 2 a game, but that's it. But now it looks like we could let in 2 or 3, which does seem to be the concern. I don't really know what the answer is, to be honest.
No, I agree. And I've got an absolute cheek saying this, Rob. Bear in mind, I've disappeared 3 times so far. We've changed formation here on the last word on Spurs. But you are freezing a couple of times. Everyone else can pick up on that. Rich and TJ, you notice. I don't know if Rob, you want to do a quick reset on the router and then come. I mean, I can
do that.
I feel like I've got a real cheek saying that. Bear in mind, I've disappeared twice, changed formation. And we're trying to keep things together. There's about 800 here watching it. So thank you so much for your support, as always. We'll let Rob do a quick reset on the router. And as Rob does that, we're just going to bring up the stats from today and bring TJ back in. So as you can see here today, for our watching audience and listeners, 17 shots to 13, I'll see in the favour of Spurs. 5 shots each, 12 fouls committed for Tottenham, 6 for Newcastle. 4 yellow cards for Spurs, 2 for Newcastle. No red cards, 3 offsides, 3 for Tottenham, 4 for Newcastle. The possession's an interesting one because, again, second half, you could argue at the start of it, Spurs showed that they were looking to get back into the game, but 52 to 48. And then that XG, which you really can't stand XG there, 1.61 to 1.50 in terms of the XG. TJ, if I can come over to you, there is that debate at the moment with regards to Conte, the players, but the worry for Spurs, they look so tired at the moment. And we've still got 6 games before the club season pauses on November the 13th. We know Kulusevski's an obvious miss, but the defensive real steal of Spurs in August and September seems to have gone. What do you think, like I say, in general at the moment, is the cause of some of these really lackluster performances? Because we keep saying it, and when we're playing well, that it's going to click. It's yet to click. Will it click, TJ, at some point this season when we get an actual 10 out of 10 performance from Tottenham?
Well, I'm going to say yes, because that's the sort of person that I am. And also, if I were to say no, I think I would probably, hang myself with my microphone cord. I think, we have a few problems. And again, Richard and Rob and yourself and all these comments that are flying in, and they're so accurate. We have a number of issues. And again, I don't want to bang that drum, but so much of it just comes down to a lack of belief and a lack of confidence. The margins of this game at this level are so fine. And again, Newcastle is the perfect illustration of that. Yes, they've brought in a couple of players, but then these bang average players that they've had, they're still a lower half of the table team who are suddenly clicked and are firing on all cylinders and are very effective because they have confidence and they believe. And again, like peak Tottenham, 2016 under Pochettino, the amount of times that I would have my heart in my mouth when we would play one-touch football around our own penalty area. And I'm thinking, if one of these passes goes astray, they're through on goal. And yet those passes wouldn't go astray because we had so much confidence and belief that we could complete all of those passes and get ourselves out of trouble and get up the other end of the pitch and score. And so is it a personnel issue? Partly, yes. And again, all these comments are highlighting that we've lost 4 very good and also fundamental players, and our bench just doesn't look solid enough to be able to replace them effectively. However, I would still say that it's part of a manager's job and part of a coaching staff's job to turn average or good players into great, if not excellent players. We certainly shouldn't be taking an excellent player like Yves Bissouma. He's got fans up and down the length and breadth of the country for his ability and the performances that he produced regularly for Brighton. And now he's come to Tottenham and seems to have fallen off a cliff. Now, he hasn't forgotten how to play football, but I think with negative comments from his manager, coaching staff, and also we have to take some responsibility as well with that. We, the fans, I do think that these players, I'm not going to hear every comment, of course, or even half, or even maybe 1% of them. But it's going to filter through to them, right? We live in the age of social media where we can say anything we want and it potentially gets back to these players. So I think we have a responsibility as well in trying to imbue a little confidence and belief back into our players, because I think it's absolutely fundamental. Those are the margins. They're that fine. You have to believe you can do the job and then go on and do the job.
Yeah, absolutely. Conte has been speaking. We are going to bring him in just a second. But before we do, Rich, I want to come back over to you. Look, as I've said there, that is the worry in terms of the fact that the tiredness there for Spurs. When you add on top of that the fact that I do feel Conte wants Spurs to play in a real crisp, accurate way of passing in possession. Now, the argument with that is if you're going to play like that, then the concern is that you're going to end up playing in your own half and eventually someone will screw it up. And I think, again, that is the issue we've got today, where if you're going to play that incisive passing, 1-to-1, it's got to work. And if you don't, like I say, can't manufacture that way of playing as a player, it screws the whole thing up. And I think the biggest issue with Spurs at the moment is we just don't pass to each other very, very well. And this is the biggest problem we've got. So if we're not doing those things, how can we expect to achieve success, Rich, with this style of play?
Well, you can't, because he's not got the personnel for it, Rick. I don't know. You ever played cards, a game called Kaluki? So you have to put one hand of 4 down. So you have a 7, 8, 9 of clubs you put down, or 4 aces, a 4 and a 3. You have to get out and you keep picking up the card, throw away a card, pick up a card, throw away a card. When you can lay down 4 and 3, you've won. Now, Conte just always wants to go out with like 4 aces and a run. So even if he's holding like two lots of 4 aces and 4 kings, he won't come down because that's the way he always plays. But like with cards, you have to adapt. So like, just play. You've got to play the cards you've been dealt. Now, he's not got the personnel to play the football that he wants to play. So until such time as he gets those wing backs that he wants to be able to play that system, you're going to have to change it up. We've brought in Basuma, is a prime example. You know, I said at the start of the show, where's the Basuma that played for Brighton? Now, I should have really fleshed that out a little bit more and said that's not really down to Basuma, because Conte's not playing him to how he used to play at Brighton. He's a box-to-box player. And Conte's clipped his wings and trying to play him in a different way. Sonny, he now plays in a very, very different way as well. He doesn't play his natural game. Royal at the back. I don't know what the lad's done from Forest that we've brought in wrong. He can't be any worse, can he? Surely he's just give him a go. Hill came on in a European game, progressed us up the pitch, won us a penalty. So you give him a little run out as well, especially on sort of 80 minutes. He brought on 2 defenders. What? It's like, what's that all about? We're supposed to be going out there.
Obviously, Brian Hill on the bench, one of the attacking players. That's the concern, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just have something a little bit different for that last 10, 15 minutes. Give it a go. It can't be any worse than what it currently is. And he just seems to stick to this same set of cards that he wants to lay down every time, even if the hand's not been dealt him. He's just all the time. He's just not adapting enough for me, Rick. And this is not my personal opinion, but more the way I see it going. I don't think he's going to get to a point of getting the players to play Conte ball before everybody, as a majority, has had enough of him and wants him gone. Because there's already a swell of people saying, oh, I'm not so sure about Conte. I'm really not sure. I don't think he's a Tottenham type manager. And I think it's going to get to a point where those voices grow and grow and grow, and he'll be gone before we get to that point. I don't want him gone. I want the club. I want the club to buy the personnel so that he can.
I agree.
You know,
I want this to work. Yeah, I mean, I know he's. I'm not being
high
rude.
risk. It's high risk, Rick.
Yeah,
playing this type of football. He has to win something. Yeah, he has to win something with it because it's not great football. It isn't great football, but it's effective if you've got the right personnel. And the mixture of the club buying enough players and him not changing and current players means it's only going to end one way. That's the way I see it. I don't want it to be that way, but I'm just being a realist with it.
I will put my neck on the line in here and say, look, I'm prepared to give it the time it needs to give Conte the players that he wants, because ultimately I still feel he's one of the best managers Spurs have ever had and ever will have. And I think, again, when you look at the other options that are out there, there's not too many, I'll be honest and say to you, that I really, really want, if I'm being brutally honest. I do honestly believe, as Conte has shown in his career and Rob comes back here, I think failure to back Conte will ultimately, I think, in the long run, do Spurs more harm, because you can see we're starting something. It was only 2 or 3 weeks ago, Spurs had their best ever start to a season. We were flying in the Champions League. Spurs are still 3rd in the Premier League. We are still on course to qualify for the Champions League. We are still in the FA Cup. We're still in the League Cup. This isn't all broken. Yes, there are problems. I can't sit and say Conte's doing anything right, because he's not doing anything right. Are the tactics frustrating? Yes. Are the players not performing to the level? Yes. Will this system fail for individual errors? Yes, but it is down to the coach to coach it out of them and to also get better players. And I think that, again, is what is really reliant on Spurs and the manager and the board. You've got to give Conte exactly what he wants in order to be successful. That has never changed, and that won't change. If you are not going to give him the tools to be successful, this will never work. So if you fail to give him the exact players he needs, as I've said, there's no point in going through this. There's absolutely no point in going through this at all. So, look, I can't get away from the fact, TJ, to come over to you, then we're going to bring Rog back in, that it is only 1 point from Chelsea, Arsenal, United and Newcastle. And as I keep on saying, the lack of the creativity is evident without Kulusevski, and the wing-back system isn't working. So does he need to change now, TJ, based on the players that he's got, until he can get the players that he wants to play his way?
Does Conte need to change? Is that the question, Rick?
Yeah. Does he need to change, and will he change? But I think we all know the answer is probably no to that.
Can he change? I think is a pertinent question as well, with regards the players that he has at his disposal. it's so hard, right? You know, it's so important to us. Football is so important to us. Whatever is going on in our lives, we look forward to the weekend, and, you know, a win just fills us with confidence and with joy. And, you know, you wear your Tottenham t-shirt down the road or whatever it is. And if you lose, especially if you lose a game at home to a team that you quote unquote should be beating, it's really, really upsetting. But what I'm going to ask for, and what I try to do myself, is have a little perspective. You know, we're still third in the league, right? Yes, we got away with it. We haven't played well. But then, of course, people say, well, a team that doesn't play well and manages to get over the line is, you know, that championship status and all that kind of thing. I'm not saying that we're going to win the title. I've never said that we're going to win the title. Not this season. It's just too early. And again, it is so hard to take a step back when we're emotionally, to use another card term, on tilt. You know, for people who play cards, if you take a big loss, you'll be on tilt for the next few hands where you should be kind of safe and not make any big plays. And I think that that's what's happened to us. We just seem completely bereft of any confidence or belief in ourselves as individuals, with those few exceptions, of course. I mean, from what I saw before the power cut, Harry Kane played really well today. And just to go back to your lockpicker analogy, we're so desperate for that creative strain in our team. Well, Harry Kane just goes, well, I can do that. You know, he's such a good player. He's our best number 9, 10 and 8. He just is, you know. And so when he drops back into that position, pings passes, and again, to Richard's point, to Rob's point, we should have really been 3 up by
we had a well,
I'm sure any Newcastle people who are listening, or, you know, whether they would be listening or not. I think my friend Nick Varley's listening, because he was certainly sending me all sorts of messages this morning from up in Newcastle. I mean, I said to you, Rick, when we were talking on WhatsApp, that Sessegnon should have had 2 assists and a goal within the first 20 minutes.
How many times do we say that? How many times do we say that every game, though? How many times do we say that?
You know, dude, how is your first touch still that bad? But again, I don't want to be the person to heap negativity onto players, because I do think it gets back to them. Not that Ryan's go, oh, I wonder what TJ said about me this week. Not that, but it just, that stuff snowballs, right? And I would rather put my arm around a player like Conte should be doing. Put your arm around these boys rather than throwing them under the bus. And just last thing as well about confidence, look at Aston Villa. Look at them. Look how they performed today. When did Gerrard leave? Was it yesterday? And look how they played today. They won 4-0 against a really good side. Brentford are a very, very good side. And they scored 3 goals in 15 minutes. Confidence matters.
Agree. Look, Rob, to come over to you. Love to have you back on, Rob. I know we've gone through a lot of beer tonight. We've gone through power cuts. We've gone through internet connection change. We've gone through everything. Conte has been speaking with regards to, after the game, to his post-match press conference. He said, I thought in the first half, before they scored, we started well. There was only one team. Pope made 1, 2, 3 fantastic saves. Then the goal, and we can do much better. I don't want to talk about the referee, but we can do better. He went on to say the second goal could kill everybody. If there's one side I'm happy about, it's in a good reaction from my players. We scored and tried to create chances to level the game, but in the end, we didn't do it. I think a draw was the most fairest result. Do you agree with that, Rob? Do you think a draw was fair? Or do you think Conte's seeing that through tilted glasses for you?
No, I think it probably was fair, because also the thing is as well, you know, after we gifted them those goals, although, you know, the second goal was brilliant by Almiron, but we kind of only got there because Lloris just put this crazy pass that he doesn't really have in the locker, and it was like, why are you trying that? And then it just, the defense was just all at sea. We weren't set for it. But they're very defensively solid. So as soon as they go 2-0 up away from home, they've got those players. You've got Joel Linton, who can just sit like an extra wall. You've got those 3 massive centre backs. So, you know, we're playing with wing backs and we're trying to get crosses in, and they're just going to be there, you know. Crossing at the end of the day is still, you can have the best crosser in the world. You can have, you know, Trent, who's not a great defender, but he's the best crosser. He can still put 15 crosses in, and it just doesn't fall to the right player. So I think they managed what they did. They managed the game brilliantly. That's what they did really, really well. And I think, you know, that bit where we scored the corner to go 2-1, and then there kind of seemed like a bit of urgency. And then they just took the wind out of the game really well, and they were just passing it around, and we were kind of chasing a little bit. But I don't know. I just found it a really funny game because, the problem we have as well, and this is what I really feel for Conte, is he kind of, because we've got all those injuries, now we've got Højbjerg and Romero, and he kind of goes, okay, we're 2-0 down, and he sort of turns to his bench, and you kind of go, what's he going to do here? We got
but the worst thing is, Rob, he's turning to the bench, and no offense, he's bringing on. We're seeing Ben Davies coming off the bench. No offense, and we're leaving Brian Hill, the only real attacking player on the bench. And regardless of what you think about Brian Hill, look, I still think he's not good enough for Tottenham, but he's here. I think when you've got an attacking player there, and we're 2-1 down, we're chasing a goal, we've got 10 minutes to go. Bloody bring him on. I mean,
I see that. Yeah. I see that. Also with Spence, I kind of thought when he brought Doherty on, I was like, is he gonna? Doherty's a brilliant, like, ghosting in behind, going unmarked at the back post, and it's like they've got 5 people sat in the penalty box. No one's ghosting in behind anywhere. Like, don't do, maybe throw Spence on. I know we don't see him.
Or even Spence, like you said,
see him, but he's quick. He's quick. We could just, we could just get him down the line. He just beats man and just gets the ball in. At least it could, particularly when it's so slippy. Like, anything could happen. That was my frustration with Conte. I thought bringing on Ben Davies, like, I didn't get that. Like, what's that going to achieve? Like, he seems he seems really desperate to not lose games by like 2, as opposed to try and nick a winner. And so that'd be my main criticism. But then I also do feel a little bit for him in that he's had these injuries, and then you also look to Hugo, who's your captain and the most senior member of the squad and a World Cup winner, and he does 2 slightly questionable things, and you kind of like, in the same way Kane and Son miss chances, and you kind of go, you're my clinical guys, the whole game plan's built around you finishing chances.
Yes, agree.
And we didn't do it. So I do think it's a little bit, it's a bit 50-50, I think, for me.
Yeah, we are going to go for our first break of the show in a second. I'm conscious that we're nearly an hour and we've not even gone for the first break yet. This is what happens when Spurs have had a defeat and we're trying to analyse absolutely everything from the players to the manager to the style of play to the approach. I'm hoping we've tried to cover as much as we can here, and we haven't held back. I think we've been as honest as we can. Rich, I just want to refer to a quote that's come out of Conte's post-match press conference, which he has said now. He said, at the start of this season, I said to you that we need to go step by step and have time and patience and have 2 or 3 transfer markets to bring this squad to be competitive, to play 2 competitions like the Premier League and the Champions League. Now, if he's going to say those words now, is the argument, okay, prove it, sign a new contract, commit to the club, and show us that you're willing to be part of this, as we keep on saying, overhaul to get Spurs to where you want us to be? Because I think until I see Conte sign a new contract, none of this means anything. Do you agree?
Spot on, because he's talking about a squad of players that he wants, because somebody else might come in and go, no, I can get a tune out of this lot. I fancy this lot. So a manager can only talk about those long-term things with his own vision and his own the way he sees it, the vision for the future. So, if you're going to say these things, sign a contract and say, right, I've signed my contract. That may even be a little bit in the players' minds. Is he going to be here? Are we actually playing for him? What's happening with the manager? He signs a contract, and then he oversees the build. That's what I would like to see happen, Rick. Where I've sort of said in the previous section that there's a lot of discord at the moment, and people calling and questioning him at the moment. I want to see him through. I want him to stay. I don't think we can do any better, to be honest. I don't want Poch back.
Look who else is out there, though. No offense. Look who else is out there. I mean, who else is out there that really is going to get Spurs?
Exactly.
And I think, as Lisa in the last show, if Conte goes, Kane goes. And that's not being exaggerated. Kane has still got, I think, over a couple of years left on his contract.
I want him to stay. I want him to stay, and I want him to get those players. Yeah. Because he will win us something once he gets those players. Yeah. But it's that in-between time, Rick, as I just said, that in-between time, he's got to find solutions when he hasn't got the players built in his own image. Yeah. And he's paid a lot of money, and he's been round the block, and he's done a lot in football. Yeah. To be able to skin the cat a different way, for the want of a better phrase. That's what he needs to do. He just needs to find a way until it's his way. He's got to, and that's his failing at the moment. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and call for him to go. I was just stating facts last time. That's the way I see it going.
Yeah.
But, you know, stick with it. Patience and calm. But then that's a two-way street, Antonio, and you've got to show some commitment to us. And there needs to be almost a contract within a contract where the chairman says, okay, you sign this, and then if you need 100, 150 million every window, because the money's there now, Rick.
There's no argument now. There is no argument now.
Argument
we're on the crisp now of signing a stadium naming right still. The stadium naming right still is coming.
Exactly. And you and I both saw what money was floating around London and around Tottenham during that NFL break with them two games. It was eye-watering. Absolutely eye-watering. So there's revenue streams there now. But we can spend £400 million a year now and not fall foul of FFP.
And not just that. I mean, we have been here before. We've been on the crisp of something where we were building under Pochettino. And the argument at that point was, okay, now is the time to back him. Now is the time to back him. And we're exactly the same point now with Conte. We're at a point where we're on the crisp of something. Now you've got to back the manager. And now you're going to have to show your hand. And again,
he has to back us. We have to back him. He has to back us.
This is a two-way street. Conte's got to back us, and we've got to back him. Right,
Correct.
what we are going to do is we are going to go for our first break of the show, nearly an hour in, for our watching audience. Thank you so much. There's about 800, 900 of you watching us live here. Again, tough show to do. Thank you so much for all of your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. I know that about 70, 80 listener questions come in. Please forgive us. I'm hopeful that we've obviously covered off the majority of what comes in. We'll try and read a couple out in the show as we go. You're going to hear from Antonio Conte in this break. Right. Okay, guys, we are going to get straight into the second half of the show. I am going to bring up the team lineup from today, which feels like a long time ago now. And I'm going to come round to TJ to discuss it with him. Right, TJ, so team today, Conte made 5 changes as Spurs took on Newcastle. Ahead of the game, we knew that Dejan Kulusevski, Richarlison remained out, and Lucas Moura was not yet ready to start. So Conte stuck with the 3-5-2, and it meant that Skip came in for his first start of the season alongside Bentancur and Yves Bissouma, with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg missing out of a small injury. It ends a run of 32 consecutive starts for Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. Clement Longley came in for Ben Davies after back-to-back starts for the Welshman, while Davinson Sanchez stepped in for Christian Romero, who also missed out the squad with a minor injury. Both the wing-backs were rotated, with Ryan Sessegnon coming in for Ivan Perisic on the left, and on the right, Emerson Royale returned to much controversy upon the end of his suspension, with Matt Doherty having had lots of game time in a short space of time. So that team read: Lloris, Sanchez, Dyer, Longley, Emerson, Skip, Bissouma, Bentancur, Sessegnon, Kane, Son, with a bench of Forster, Tanganga, Davis, Doherty, Spence, Perisic, White, Lucas, Hill. TJ, any surprises? Shocking admission by the loss of Romero and Højbjerg to that lineup when it came out?
No surprises given the injuries. I was pleased to see Skip come back into the team, and again, remember, chaps, I only saw the first half, and then there was a power cut. And actually thought he did really well. He's a similar player to Højbjerg. He's wears his heart on his sleeve, and he never backs out of a tackle. He seems to cover every blade of grass, and I really like that. And he certainly has Tottenham in the veins. He's very young. I know he looks about 48, but he's probably about 21 or something. And so it was good to see him. I do think, like all of these athletes, he needs a run of games and some time in the team. But, we're talking about our squad and we're talking about depth and things like that, and having a player of his ability. And remember, whenever he plays for England, I know he plays at the youth level, if it's 23s or 21s or whatever it is, not only does he absolutely boss that team, he's always the man of the match. So I think he's a very important inclusion for us, and I'm glad that injury he got 2 injuries, didn't he, in a row. I'm glad that's come back. I do again want to mirror what Richard and Rob and what yourself, Rick, are saying about we do have to be patient. We do have to give Conte time, and we also have to give players time, but not all of them. I would say that Sanchez, again, every single time I've been on the show, Sanchez comes up. I know Lee is a fan of his, or a fan to a degree of his. Like typically when he plays, we don't concede goals. but he always just looks like Bambi on roller skates to me. And he always has done. I know he's athletic and I know he's rangy. He's strong and he can win headers and stuff. But his decision-making and his passing always seems below par, like not even average. And again, to hear Richard saying that his friends, Ajax fans, messaging him saying, oh, what a player you have in this boy. He's been with us for a long time now. Seems like a nice lad, but you've now played under 4 managers at Tottenham and none of them have got a tune out of you. And so I think we do just have to cut our losses and get rid of players like that. I've never been a fan of Royale. Yes, he's improved. And then we heard that he spent £1 million of his own money to get better. That's great, but they're paid millions of pounds to play football. So if you can't play football, damn right, you put your hand in your bloody pocket. God knows we put our hands in our pockets to go to the games and to buy Tottenham memorabilia and shirts and all the rest of it. So if you're not playing well, put your hand in your pocket and improve. Players like Sessegnon are a worry to me. I just don't know where that player is. And again, just looking at the comments coming through, how can you not cross a ball? How is that not in your game? I reckon all of us who've ever played this game reckon, well, I could cross. I might not be able to shoot or score or whatever, but I think I could cross a ball. You should be. How are you not getting a bag of 200 balls after training and just ping me some crosses to the young lads who never play? Get Harvey White or something to ping the ball out to me and let me see if I can put in a flat cross across the 6-yard line. Why are you not practicing that? Why can you still not shoot on target? You should be practicing that stuff. And if they're not going to motivate themselves to do it, the coaching staff has to motivate them to do it.
Yeah. Rob, I just want to come over to you. Conte has also been speaking about that team lineup he put out today in his post-match press conference. He said that for Skippy, it's the first game since January. When you put all this together, we have to have experience. It's very important for me to cope with this difficult moment and to have experience and try to go until November in the best way possible when he referred to the lineup. He said for Decky, our expectation was to have him recovered much earlier. Instead, the situation was worse and we needed to wait. Lucas Moura started the season with a problem in his tendon. Now he's trying to recover from a good physical condition. And he also went on to say that with regards to Richie and Decky, no chance for Sporting. I don't know about Pierre and Kuti for Wednesday. I don't know the way they're going to recover from this fatigue and this situation. If they have something, Romero in his calf, Pierre in his thigh. And he went on to say that with regards to Romero, in the last 2 or 3 games, he arrived every day, half and half, to decide if he plays or doesn't play. I think in the past we have taken the risk. The players gave their availability to play. Otherwise, honestly, if the player doesn't want to play, I don't force them. He went on to say that now after the game against United, he felt a lot of fatigue. And then yesterday, on the Friday, he felt fatigue in his calf, but in his thigh, the right, and now the left in the calf. Pierre was the same because Pierre played every game. He played every minute and he was really tired. It sounds like, Rob, that the lineup we've got here in front of us could be becoming quite a common theme, depending on how we try and recover some of these guys from injury. How do you feel about that, Rob?
Not great. It's that's what I say when I feel a bit for Conte, because I was saying as soon as that team sheet came out today, I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about this. Like for me, you just can't have. It's bear in mind, Conte ball is based around passing it around the back. You draw the forwards out, and then you quickly move it. You can't have that with Sanchez and Royale on the same side. You just can't. And Lloris as well. That's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6 back players, and you're trying to pass it out the back, and 3 of them aren't very good at passing. Like you're really going to struggle. But then that's where I feel for Conte, because I don't know who else he could put in. I really don't like. Doherty, I presume, is first choice now, but he just come back from that long injury and played 3 games in a row, so I don't think you can start 4 games in 9 days or whatever it is. And he didn't look great when he came on either. It's not great. The one thing I would say slightly in our favour is we just need to get through to this World Cup break, don't we? Which I think we've got 4 or 5 games left.
That's a massive worry, though. We've got 5 or 6 games to go, Rob. That's a massive worry. I know what you mean.
If you look at them,
we need results.
No, absolutely. But if you look at them, I think that they're not the worst. I think we've got Liverpool at home, who have a load of injuries themselves, but that will be a very hard game. But I don't think they've won a game away from home this season, which is a very, very Tottenham thing to say until they come and play us. And then the other ones is like Bournemouth. I think we've got Leeds as well. So it kind of feels like, it's not great. Kulusevski's a massive miss. Romero's a massive miss. Højbjerg's a huge miss. But it feels like we just need to stagger to the World Cup, get a few reinforcements in January, and then try and get everyone fit again.
I mean, Rich, coming over to you. Look, I mean, there was some pre-match talk for Newcastle. They could be without Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton, but they both did start, and so did Kieran Trippier on his first return since leaving Spurs. And even as we changed 5 players, Rich, as you can see the formation there, we still opted with the 3-5-2, which he used against Old Trafford. He clearly didn't feel ready for Lucas, Hill, Perisic in a front 3 yet. I mean, we know that Lucas has obviously got injury problems, but I do get the feeling, Rich, to kind of conclude on the team lineup, that as soon as everybody saw that team today, there was immediate, it was feeling the worst, wasn't there?
Yeah, and quite rightly. Take a look at that team on the screen now. There's 9 defensive players and 2 up top. There's no balance to it. Where's the creativity in there? Sessegnon and Royal just don't seem to have a pass in them as wing backs. So, like, straight away, you're under the gun, because there's just not the ability there at the moment. Sessegnon, maybe. Royal, no, not happening. So there you go. You've got that 9 now, and then 2, and no creativity. You put it through to that front 2, and the second goal absolutely summed us up. You look at that team there when we played out. Lloris floats the ball out to Sessegnon, absolutely telegraphs it, doesn't fizz one into him or put it 10, 15 yards in front of him. He just floats one. It's red. Sessegnon's bullied off the ball like he wasn't even there, doesn't give a foul away. Then he comes up against Longley. Well, I'm not much fancying him to come in and be in the
left
solution.
Him for dead, didn't he?
That.
Left him for dead.
Absolutely left him for dead. It left him for dead. Sheer will just took him through and back and through past Lloris. Game over. Done. So this is the thing, Rick. How many goals get scored against us versus how many goals do we give away? There is a difference. We get very, very few goals scored against us. So many of our goals...
It's architects of our own downfall, isn't it? Individual errors. This is a Spurs theme that we've had over so many years. Rich,
Tottenham's biggest opponents have always been Tottenham.
Totally agree. We beat ourselves.
Yeah, it is.
Look at our defeats.
Yeah, we get very, very few goals scored against us. We give them away. And today, that second goal, like I said at the start of the show, is basics, Rick. You got to want it. I mean, Neil Warnock gets the pee ripped out of him for this and that, but he probably said one of the most profound things in football ever when that clip of him. You got to want to die for 3 points. And he's probably right. And that is the whole ethos and one of the basic DNA building blocks of football. You've got to die to want it. You have got to want it. Want it, win it, do the basics. And then everything else can just tumble out from that. And that was us not doing the basics for that second goal today. It was that was us in a nutshell, goal number 2. Because that team is there's no balance there. Basuma's wings clipped, as I said to you. He's a box-to-box player, but he's playing him in a different way. So there's just no balance. He's not letting those players play their natural games. He's getting them to do things they don't really want to do. It's like when Richie's in the side. Him and Son both on the right there. It's like that's just not their game. So
it's worrying, isn't it? Yeah, and the concern is that it is a regular theme. And again, I will say the point that we're going to be honest here tonight. We haven't held back on the manager. We've not held back on the players. We're going to come on to the players now because the performance itself wasn't great. And to try and review this game, what I will say is Spurs, we had actually a decent start to the game. It was pretty frantic. We had 3 chances in the opening 15, 20 minutes. Kane slipped in Son 1v1, who really should have scored, but Pope saved a real tame shot from close range. Basuma had an effort flirting. It went over the crossbar. But the good start was undone, as Rich said there, by Spurs being the architects of their own downfall. And coming over to you, TJ, Hugo comes out to intercept a through ball outside the box. He chests it down. He collides with Wilson, who chipped into the empty net over both Lloris and Dyer, who both just stood there in absolute amazement. VAR checked for a possible handball when it looked like maybe the argument might have been the Newcastle striker had to put an arm to impede Lloris's run. But replay showed Wilson does block him, but it's not enough of a 50-50 to give really the goal, chalked off. and therefore Spurs were left going mad. Newcastle won up. Could you argue with the opening goal, TJ, for you?
You can argue both sides of that. It's either a foul or it isn't. It's a coin toss. I'm not going to throw my arms in the air and go, oh, it was a blatant foul. Oh, he put his left arm out. He impeded him. I mean, listen, it shouldn't even just come into that. There are certain things that happen in football, especially if you've been playing it long enough. And, how long has Hugo Lloris been playing this game at the very highest level? Again, we said, he's captain of France, World Cup winner, all the rest of it, right? You don't come out as a goalkeeper and try to parry that with your knees or with your chest or whatever. If you're going to come out every single time, every single goalkeeper, any single level, even if it's Muppets like us running around having a game with our friends on the weekend, if you're going to run out of your box and try to intercept a ball that's bouncing, head, bosh, head out as far as it will go, and not straight, you're aiming for the line. You're aiming to put that out for a throw. Yeah. Everybody knows that. So how do you make such a clangor, such a mental error? Like Richard said, you have to be prepared to die for your team. It's 90 minutes. Really, that's your job. All the other stuff will come if it comes or it doesn't come. But really, your job is to give absolutely everything you have from the first whistle to the last, like somebody like Højbjerg does. Now, people say, oh, he's no good. I'm not even going to venture into that. He's no good, right? He's not the most technically gifted player in the world or whatever, but nobody can doubt his desire and his commitment. Just reading some of the
leadership we missed today. Look at the leadership we missed today without him.
Exactly. Again, and King Hoddle saying you can't coach desire in players. I'm not sure if that's true. I think it's naturally comes to some people in life. I have to say, I've said this before, I am one of those people. I'm an all or nothing person. There's very little in the middle. If I'm going to try to do anything, I'm going to try to do it to the best of my ability. Can you teach that? I don't think you can teach that necessarily, but what you can teach people and give people is that winning begets winning. Is it controversial to be on a Tottenham show and talk about Arsenal? But look, I mean, their passing, you have to say, is more or less perfect. Richard was saying, Granit, dude, I loved talking about Granit Xhaka and how ineffective he was. And I'm like, I can't believe he's in a big club. Yeah, here we are. And he is absolutely mustard. Every pass is correct. Every tackle is correct. And the man's popping up and scoring goals. He scored again today. So their system is working because those players have belief. Are they all born winners and that I'll die for the badge and all that kind of thing? I would guarantee you not, because I actually think as a personality trait in human beings, that's very rare. Like whenever there's one of those competition shows on TV, all those reality shows, you can't move for reality shows back in England, right? Everyone says, oh, I'll never quit. I'd never quit. It's not in me. And what happens every season? All of them quit apart from the one who wins. So you can teach a winning mentality, but it starts with belief. It starts in confidence. And we just have to get something happening again. We have to recapture a little bit of what made us successful in the beginning. And a lot of that was luck.
It was. Yes, spot
Agreed.
on. Was luck.
But also a lot of it was graft. Make sure that your heels hit your ass more than the opposing players, and you have a big chance of winning that game.
Rob, coming over to you. Look, there is argument that goalkeepers get extra protection, but if it's an outfield player going down in the same situation, you'd say it was soft. For me, that's completely 50-50. If they swap shirts, we'd be demanding that goal stood. But the issue is we're going to see one next week very similar, and the goal won't stand. So it's the frustration, Rob, maybe not that situation, but the lack of consistency overall when it comes to an element like we've seen there, Rob. We're going to need to unmute Rob as much as he doesn't want to talk about this, Rob. I'm so sorry. You're going to have to unmute yourself. I know it's not great to talk about this.
Well, yeah, it's that thing, isn't it? Where it's like it just changes week by week. I don't know if you can you remember it was the Southampton game last year. We were away against Southampton, and it was Foster was actually in goal, and he ended up sort of just dropping the ball, and it went in, and we should have scored.
Doherty, the foul with Matt Doherty,
literally didn't touch him, and it got given as a foul, and it went to VAR. No, and he didn't touch him, and you kind of go, that's the big thing at the moment with the refereeing, isn't it? It's the lack of consistency that's the problem, and then I think. Then you have the knock-on effect of that is because you can literally see in the slow-mo replay where Wilson's arm comes out and you can see Lloris, like you can see the cogs turning and you can see him think, is it enough for a foul? And you can kind of see him go, I'm going to go down here. And, he drops down and then, in another split second, he might have thought, I better stay on my feet and he gets back and it's okay. And so that's where it's confusing because, you got some players thinking, well, I won't get the foul if I don't go down. And then they do go down and, although I will say the ref he did seem to be letting a lot of things go today. A lot of stuff seemed to be going. I thought on both sides, actually. I didn't really agree with a lot of what he was doing. But yeah, the great irony though with Lloris, can you remember when we got him and he was like that new wave of sweeper keeper? And we went from Brad Friedel, who could barely walk like more than 5 yards.
Could not
get down. He was like I think he was about 63 by the time he finished playing for us. But then and Lloris used to charge out, and that was his thing, wasn't it? He'd charge out and he'd clear the ball, and that was his big thing when he came in. And as you say, as TJ was saying, you can't go in and sort of use your thigh/knee. It's not a great look.
I mean, Richard, to come over to you on this, I know you've had your say on Lloris earlier in the show. Ben Foster actually tweeted that if an outfield player knocks it past an opposing player and they're in their way like that, it's a foul every single time. The goalkeeper is the player in control of the ball. If he beats the striker to the ball and a striker is in the way, unfortunately, it's a foul. There's nothing the striker can do about it, but it's still a foul. That's from Ben Foster, who obviously has only recently retired. Do you share those thoughts, or do you hold Lloris fully accountable there, regardless of Ben Foster's ruling on that, who obviously was an ex-goalkeeper, just recently retired?
I think Lloris has to clear him out, and if he can't clear the ball, he clears him out. And I mean, it was a bit laughable, really. He gets caught, he tries to go down, he tries to win the free kick. It's not a free kick, but he shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. I bet you Fraser Forster would have cleaned him out. He wouldn't have been getting back up to dink the ball back in. And if he had to take a booking for it, so be it. It's just, it was weak, Rick. It was weak. He's got it wrong. And he's tried to buy the free kick because they normally do get them. And this time he hasn't. And you're right. It's the inconsistencies. Next week, it will be a foul and it's probably a booking for the outfield player. It's just, but that's by the by. That's for the birds, isn't it? Today, he's got that wrong. He's got that totally wrong. And, Lloris has been fantastic. He's saved us more than he's lost us. It's the lot of a goalkeeper, isn't it? Sometimes, 1 week you're a world beater, next week you're a panel beater. It's just that's just the way it is with goalies.
We were sitting here saying on the back of that United game that Lloris is the only one that deserves any ounce of praise. And then it's hard because on here today, I think it definitely is a case where the error that he makes leads to Spurs' ultimate downfall across the whole game, because really it leads to that lack of confidence, doesn't it? That shakiness starts to come in. It spreads across the back four, and then it spreads and it spreads. If he comes out and clears him out, and then has a snarl and a slap and a kick bollock and bite at his back four for not dealing with things and whatever, it might just G them up a little bit. All of a sudden there's that shakiness which leads to everybody else. So you just got to have some of those people in now that just give you a little something. This is why I was saying maybe Højbjerg at the moment is the answer to be the captain, because I think Stevie Perriman puts it perfectly whenever I work with him. He'll say to you, you know what? I always went out to try and be a 10 out of 10 player, but I wasn't. I knew my limitations. I'd give you 10 out of 10, but I might not reach 10 out of 10. I was always a 7 or 8. I'll tell you something, no, I was never a 5 or 6. So if somebody can get you to a 7 or 8 week in, week out, and give you that effort, that's what you need spreading through the team. It's too much the confidence, the shakiness that it spreads through the team. That's a worry. That is a real worry. I think he's just come to a natural end, Lloris, now as a goalkeeper. I think he's got to an age, and I think it's time. They need time to bed in as well, keepers. So I really do think it's time to start looking. I mean, how old is he now, Rick Lloris? Oh God, I need to have a look. I think he's 37 potentially. I might need to have a Google. Yeah,
I mean, he's kept himself in good nick, and they can go on for years, but the reactions start to slow. They do slow. It's as simple as that with time. So I would go all guns blazing.
I'm doing him a disservice. He's 35. I'm doing a bit of a disservice there. 35. Yeah. I know that every year matters when you're after 30. So 35.
But the finish line is more in sight than the start line, isn't it?
Absolutely.
With him,
Yeah,
and if you're given a couple of years for somebody else to come in, I'd take a keeper that's like ready to go off the peg. Sanchez at Brighton. I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper. I think he's, and there's more to come from him as well. He's like about 26, 27. Good keeper. Really good keeper. I think
whoever we turn to next, we've got to make that decision right, because, again, it's such an important member of the team. Lloris, whatever you say about him, although today he's let us down, there's been times where he's saved Spurs. So it's a big decision next to come. Whether that's got to happen imminently, that, again, is to be decided on. But there's no doubt about it that as soon as he made that error, we looked shaky from then on. He sent a kick meant for Sessegnon that was off target. It found its way to Miguel Almiron, coming over to you, TJ. Shot under the goalkeeper. If I'm being honest with you about it, he skimmed and went past long like he just simply wasn't there. I mean, we were sleepwalking to that second goal, wasn't we, TJ? Just it was all over the place from Tottenham commentators.
So I mean, just to weigh in on the Lloris conversation, and again, I'll keep it brief because you chaps have covered everything so succinctly, and again, a lot of the comments coming in from the listeners and the viewers as well. He's 36 on Christmas Day, so like in 6 weeks he'll be 36. Obviously, still a young man, but with regards football, that's a dinosaur really. And I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say about this and what the listeners would have to say about this. Again, I just think the standard of goalkeeping now is so very, very high. This kind of quote unquote shot stopping ability is actually quite common now. No disservice to Hugo. He's an incredible shot stopper, but there are a great many goalkeepers who are incredible shot stoppers. In order to be a top 4, top 6, and dare I say, challenging to win trophies goalkeeper nowadays, you have to have that footballing ability as well. You have to have that range of passing. You would never think to come out of a bouncing ball, 10 yards out of your penalty area and not head it. Like, again, Edison's never making that mistake. Sanchez at Brighton, again, like Richard said, never making that mistake. There are these young goalkeepers now that have all this ability. They're outfield players who somebody threw them a ball once and they caught it and said, oh, maybe I should try out for goalkeeper. They have incredible ability with their feet and those floated passes. I have to say that there should never be a half-hearted pass across the back line. I see too much of that. When the ball is being bounced around the back line, it will go back to the goalkeeper who'll play it out to like an approaching central midfielder who then plays it out wide again. All those passes have to be fast and crisp, because otherwise, when you're under a press, and a lot of modern teams play with a press, Newcastle did today, they're on you once you've received the ball. If that ball moves quickly, and it should, because they have the ability to play that pass quickly, and then the player receiving that ball should have the ability to control it and knock it on quickly. Or, like I said last time I was on the show, play the most important pass in the Premier League, which is the round the corner first time pass.
Yep.
You don't have time to control the ball. Not in the Premier League. So all of those passes have to be crisper. As far as the defense, Sessegnon, far too weak. There's no excuse for being physically weak as a professional athlete. Don't get bullied off the ball by somebody who's your size and your weight and your shape. Bring him down if you need to. Take a yellow card for the team. And as far as Longley goes, man was asleep. What are you doing?
Well, also left for dead. Just the lack of pace was really worrying there. Alarming.
Between the goalkeeper, a gaping goal, and also coming in at that angle, it's easy to score, right? So you must at least be on your toes. Dude, it made me think of Super Yan. You think Super Yan gets danced around like that? No way. And then you're clamoring back. It was embarrassing. The disparity in the pace and the enthusiasm of the attacking player. The defending player, just get yourself ready before that happens. It's like how fighters brace themselves for a hit before it happens. Otherwise, you get knocked out.
Yeah.
Be ready, man, for what you know is coming. You're a professional footballer. And if you can't be coached that, then go back to Spain.
Can I say to you, Rob? I mean, this is the whole problem that the second goal starts from the fact of Sessegnon being weak, Spurs really, as I keep on saying, falling asleep, Dyer over-hitting the pass to Sessegnon. We keep on saying that Spurs are the absolute architects of our own downfall. If anyone's going to cost Spurs the game, it is themselves. And that second goal, really, as I said, it comes from the fact that Dyer and Lloris continue to look so nervy in possession, both misplacing passes from the back. The latter then at one point, obviously, leading to that second goal. I mean, it's so unavoidable, isn't it, Rob? That second goal, so unavoidable. Again, it's
Oh,
a good
yeah.
finish from Almiron, who's in form, but again, doesn't need to happen.
Yeah, well, the whole thing, like, it literally started, that Lloris floated pass out, as Crackers was saying, to Sessegnon, and you could see it happen. You could see Lloris look up and see him, and then like the way he was on the near touchline, and you look down, it was like, well, he's got 2 men on him, so I probably wouldn't try and pick that one out. And then he just floated it over, and it was like you could literally see as it came. You could see the Newcastle players go, right, here we go, we're onto him here. This is it. And then you say it's just that's the big thing, don't they? They tell you when you're a kid, like, if you do not compound errors, like you make a mistake. Longley should have just cleared him out, or Sessegnon should just take him down, take the yellow, don't let it get to the stage. And then even Lloris at the last minute, like Almiron's on a tricky angle, and I think that one of the pundits said half time or afterwards, Lloris then suddenly decided, I'm gonna go out, and it's that thing again where he's panicking, he's already made a mistake, and he's a bit erratic, and yeah, that's the big problem. There was also that bit, I think. Was it off a goal kick? I can't remember. I think the coverage slightly missed it, where we played it out to Sanchez, who then passed it back to Dyer, who tried to pass it quickly back to Lloris and hit it too hard. Lloris wasn't quite ready, and it just went out like, I mean, it could have been an own goal if it had been a foot the other way, like it was touch and go. And you just kind of go, that's the problem though. That's the problem we've got with, I think, with the squad depth and just this transition period between Conte getting to the players that you want to, where you want to be able to play. And I do think at times it's all very well going, like we'll play out from the back and we draw the teams on. But I think we all saw that today when the team sheet came out. We were all like, Newcastle are pretty good at pressing. Eddie Howe knows how to kind of like line these things up. Yeah. And it was like that Sanchez-Emerson side. Dyer's looked a bit shaky. It's not, and you saw Joel Linton and Bruno and their team were great at pressing as well. And it was just like, this is kind of, I feel like we all knew it was coming. We all knew today there would be at least one or two big mistakes we make at the back, and it'd be whether or not they'd score them. And it happened today, and they did score them, and it cost us the game, really.
Totally agree. Boos, of course, rang out massively at half-time. Dyer actually spent the walk back to the tunnel having anything to say to the officials, which Ali Goal reported. But in truth, I think he should have been turning his anger towards himself. It was a really, really poor end to that first half. Dyer, Lloris really comparing it as we do. But like I said, we are going to go for our next break of the show for our listeners and audio. For our watching audience, there's still a good 600, 700 of you here watching us live. Thank you so much for all your support for Last Word on Spurs. It's never easy on the back of having to suffer and watch that brand of football serving up right now, and another defeat for Tottenham back-to-back in the Premier League. We're joined by the wonderful Richard Cracknell, the great TJ Ramini, and the superb Rob Howard back on Last Word on Spurs. Just a reminder here, of course, we are delighted to be sponsored by NordVPN. Now, I keep making that joke to you that if you're traveling around Europe, let's hope it's still going to be lasting for Tottenham. That obviously NordVPN, you can, of course, change your location settings depending on where you are around the world to catch the latest sports, your favourite TV programmes, wherever you are. You can change to be in the UK. Although what we're watching at the moment, you might want to change to Uganda or somewhere different with what we're being served up as Spurs fans right now. But just a reminder, we have got a discount on Last Word on Spurs here. You can go to nordvpn.com/LWS to get yourself 30-day money-back guarantee and 4 months free with Nord's 4-month plan, nordvpn.com/LWS. Rich, I can see you eager to come in. Tell me.
You know what Nord does, Rick? It does the basics, right? It doesn't overplay it. It just sets you somewhere else. Puts your VPN, puts you somewhere else, puts you in Uganda. You can watch all your programs. Just does the basics. Doesn't over it a 10-yard pass, and it gives you everything for 90 minutes. That's Nord. It's just basics. Simple.
Wouldn't it be easier to cover Nord than Spurs at the moment? Well, I mean, coming on to the second half, Rich, let's stick with you. Seconds after Newcastle threatened a third, Spurs did get a goal back. Harry Kane pulling one back over a flicked-on corner after a long VAR check it was given. I mean, it's almost becoming a signature move now for Kane. He does have 10 goals in his last 12 appearances, and for Kane now it's taken him only 12 games to reach those 10 goals, which is the soonest he's done so in his career since 21-22, where Kane didn't score his 10th league goal and to the 25th game of the season. I mean, again, I think we'll all say Kane maybe not up to his brilliant best at the moment, but still scoring, Rich. Is that a good sign, even though today we're not obviously performing to the level that we need to be?
Yeah, because he's a class footballer, Rick. He's, if he's a bricklayer, he builds you great brick walls. But we haven't got enough odd carriers behind him at the moment. We're just not bringing in bricks to make the wall. So the fact that he is getting some goals at the moment is quite phenomenal, because there's just not them players. He's not even getting the crosses in from the wing backs because they're just not up to scratch, and we've got nobody giving us that Ericsson or a Maddison to capture the zeitgeist, if you like, of a player that everyone seems to call for. So he's the only service he seems to be getting is off of these set pieces. They're working well. So it's try and create set pieces within open play, isn't it? Get yourselves into positions where you're putting balls in as if it is a set piece. So the fact he's getting any goals really off the back of the way we're playing is quite remarkable and a testament to him. I mean, I think I would even argue at the moment to go completely left field and drop Harry into midfield, because he is your De Bruyne, and then play Son up front with Richie and drop him back and put him in alongside Højbjerg and give us some creativity when things ain't going right.
That's if we're not going to go and strengthen that in January, because I keep on saying it. I hate to keep saying it. It's
another way of playing, Rick, isn't it? It's, because
it changes it up a little bit. We're not so
the current shower isn't working, isn't it? It's just not working. So maybe that's the answer until such times as we can do something different, is a tactical change within games, and even from the off in some games. Play him in that De Bruyne role, especially when Richie's back from injury as well. And we could play Richie in the Kane role and Son, guess what, in the Son role that he was used to be playing. So it's just another thought of a way that it could be mixed up if what you're currently serving like now isn't working. So, another great goal. But then after that, we never really threatened again, because we never got another set piece or created enough chances for him to at least get on the end of. So
I think what also is concerning, Rich, is that Eddie Howe has become the second manager in a row now to say that his team just produced their best performance of the season against Spurs after Ten Hag on Wednesday. That's really concerning, isn't it? And again, I mean, look, I feel like we've done the game. We'll do a bit on the player ratings, then we're going to look to Sporting. But it is really, really alarming and concerning. I mean,
because we've allowed them to be, haven't we, Rick? That's why we allowed Man U to be, and we allowed Newcastle to be, and they're two decent teams. And when we're not in possession, we just look bang ordinary at the moment, out of possession.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I mean, when you look at Spurs at the moment, and I know we said this during the show, that if we're being honest about it, we've beaten the teams that you would expect Spurs to beat, but every time we've had that big test, it hasn't ended well. And even with Chelsea, we scraped a draw. So we have to be real that the table probably reflects quite lucky on us at the moment. Do we deserve to be third? Probably not in terms of performances, but we've got the points. And you just wonder at some point, we keep on saying it's going to click with Tottenham, but when? When is it going to click? And the concerning thing is that you look at the last two performances and the injuries that we got now, it's massively worrying as to when that will click. I mean, TJ, we saw Ivan Perisic come on for Sessegnon, who picked up a yellow card. Lucas Moura came on for Skip, who just picked up yellow as well. We reverted then to a 3-4-1-2 of some sort. Latterly, we then saw Davis replace Longley, Doherty coming on for Sanchez. But if we're being honest about it, Newcastle used all the real dark arts to see out that game. I mean, subs overall, I know we touched on it briefly. Brian Hill is probably, and maybe Jade Spence, the only two players of any attacking form you could bring on. Was you debatable about those substitutions? Could he have done more with his bench?
Well, I mean, again, complete transparency. Remember, I didn't see any of those substitutions due to the power outage. But I just wanted to jump back as well a little bit to what Richard was saying about Harry Kane. And I'm very much a believer as well that he is our best midfielder. He's also he wins all the defensive headers off corners as well. Probably our best defender. He's certainly our best midfielder, and he's our best attacker. He can play so many positions because not only is he a quality footballer, but he's completely committed. Would Conte ever play him in that system? I would say that's a definite no. Definite no.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Richard, that he could play that.
I agree with him as well. I would love to see him there, but I don't think he'll play him there.
He can thread past. He did it today. Did it 4 or 5 times today. Sonny should lace that. Bang, lace that, dude. Don't try a little sexy chip. We're 0-0. We're at home. We've just had our worst performance. I think the United performance was our worst performance from Burnley last year. That's
Agreed.
the worst I've seen them play. And look, United did really well. Obviously, I've got lots of friends who support United. I'm saying, guys, you had a really good go and you pressed and you stuck to your task. But if you ever have a game where Fred, he looked like Zinedine Zidane that day. Fred looked
we're
like
making them, aren't we? We're making them like this, TJ. We're making them like this. This is the problem.
The opposing team then is dropping the ball left, right, and centre. And so to the substitutions, to formations, like things like that, we're not using. People have talked about Bissouma, like he's a box-to-box midfielder, and we're trying to teach him how to be a defensive midfielder. That's not his game. So either does Conte bend, or does he no, I'm going to bend this player to my will? If you're trying to bend a player to your will, then why did you buy that player then? Because he's not that. Again, it's the round peg in a square hole, right? If you've got water shooting out the wall at home and you've got the number for a plumber in front of you, you don't call a glazier. You call the plumber. There's water coming out the wall. And so it just seems to me like there is a complete disconnect with what Conte wants his players to do and then what those players' abilities are. I was reading about Lucas, and I have enormous affection for Lucas because of course, the very important goals he scored for us in Amsterdam. And, he just seems like a decent dude. And again, he always tries his best. But whenever he's playing under Conte, whenever he comes on, he honestly looks like he doesn't know what to do. And he's constantly looking over at the bench like he's lost. Again, this is a senior footballer, a Brazilian footballer who we've had at the club for many years. You shouldn't come on and, when I'm hired, I'm not looking at the director. Is this the right place to be? I'm looking at the mark. Is that where I should be standing? I know all those things, and they just look lost. Again, a lot of that, I'm sorry to keep banging this drum, is belief in confidence. I know it is. It just is. It's not a debate. But there should be an understanding of what these players are supposed to achieve if given an opportunity. People are talking about Bryan Hill being given a chance, Spence being given a chance. Bryan Hill, I'm not so sure. Man looks like if somebody sneezes in the 50th row, he'd fall over. He needs to go to the gym, Spence, definitely, because I saw him tear strips off Arsenal last season when he was at Middlesbrough. So definitely for me, I would give him a chance. But what do I know? But what really is important is that when players come off the bench, they know exactly what it is that they are tasked with. Get all that information before you come on and hit the ground running. Be ready.
Agree. Rob, we're going to go to some of the player ratings, as difficult as this is. Defence overall today, as we said, Davinson Sanchez. I mean, look, I will give anybody a chance, in the team. I think everybody kind of made their mind up on Sanchez, despite the fact Conte calls him Patron, and the fact that on the back end of last season, I think he ended the season with, 4 successive clean sheets, 3, forgive me. But he just looked so iffy today. And the argument is that you could say, look, he's not had enough games to come into a side and then play. Dyer next to him, just so shaky overall. Longley beaten far too easy for the second goal. Emerson Royale. I mean, where do I go with Emerson? I mean, again, effort, willingness, commitment. But apart from that, just not good enough. And that's me just being honest, not good enough. Sessegnon as well, as we said about Sess, another player where, if we're being honest about it, gets himself into really good positions, final ball lets him down. And I'm saying the same thing about these wing-backs every single week, every single show since they've been bought. Defence overall, Rob, just needs either improvement or coaching. Can it be done?
That's it. Well, the problem we've got is Romero is by far and away our best passer out the back, and then as soon as he goes, the whole thing sort of kind of you go from this is our game plan to oh god, like how many chances are we going to concede trying to pass it out the back? Yeah, defense really bad today, really bad. I think this confidence thing, it keeps coming up, but it's so true because I think Dyer is like the. He's like the water, but not the watermark. He's kind of like the barometer of where the confidence is in the team. Because when we're confident, he plays well. And when there's any little bit of doubt or something sneaking in, he starts making these little mistakes. And it's been a while. It's been ages since we've seen him making these mistakes. So much so that he's gone from not being in the England squad for 6 months to probably looking like he'll start at the World Cup out of nowhere. And suddenly it started sneaking back in. So yeah, based on this game and the last game as well, you got to say defense not good. But I don't know what we do because Romero's injured, and like who do we play instead of Sanchez? I bet Conte probably thinks exactly the same, but I don't know who else we have.
And I think again it's that element where if he said how we felt as fans, he'd be losing the dressing room, wouldn't he? You can't just come out and outwardly go in on the players. And again, I'm conscious of the fact that the thing I know Richard points on the screen there. Steve Comber says Udogi's going to show Sessegnon how a left wing back is done. What I don't honestly understand is that I thought the Udogi signing would have pushed Sessegnon on to think, do you know what? I've really got to perform this season, Rich. I've really got to perform because Udogi's going to take my place. He's one of the best rated left wing backs, I think, currently over in Europe at the moment. So, he should really be Sessegnon driving himself on. And also Perisic, to be fair. Perisic has been nowhere near the grade over the course of the last few weeks. When he came in, there was excitement, there was real desire, there was drive. Perisic looks like, I don't know what's happened to him, where he looks like he's close to the end, Rich. I mean, thoughts on those wing-backs, Rich? Because that's where we expect Conte really to get it right if this formation's going to be right moving forward.
Yeah. But, no man's an island, are they? If you're a wing-back, you're relying on some decent balls out from your keeper or teammates. They're not there. So, effectively, they start from a minus position. If they do recover, their final ball isn't into the box, to a standard where Son and Kane can get onto it. So then all of a sudden, Son and Kane don't look so good. So you start questioning them. So it's, everything's a link, isn't it? So, and if those links aren't up to it, somebody else can't do their job. You can't do your job effectively enough. It's a production line, isn't it, football? He needs to get that right for you to take the ball, to do it right, for the next man to and goal. That's the way it works. But when there's so many breaks and weak links in this chain, this is what we keep getting. And I mean that back five today. Well, I mean tomorrow we've got this Tory leader vote, haven't we? The Tory leadership, and there'll be political commentators tweeting all day tomorrow. Your runners and riders are going to be Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson and this one and that one. And some wag, there's always one, there'll be a wag that comes on and says, explain in football terms, won't there? Somebody always says that. Can you explain in football terms? I'll just show him a picture of that back five because that's what he looked like. He looked like the Tory leadership lineup for tomorrow, that back five. It was a clown's car on fire. It's just... Dyer's no good when Romero's not next to him. He's all over the place. That back pass was nearly an own goal. That's just the basics. Dear. It's just the basics not right. The wing backs just not up to it. Not up to it.
I'll give you some breaking.
Sanchez, all of them.
I'll give you some breaking unrelated football news. Apparently, Boris has pulled out a couple of minutes ago, Rich. So even more so now, it's looking worse, isn't it? We're even more looking worse than the back five of Spurs, not the back five of the Conservatives. Anyway, just to move on from that, conscious that we've got to squeeze in 5 minutes on sporting. Rob, let's go around a unit just on midfield. I think today does show just how much we did really miss Pierre-Emile Højbjerg in the middle, but I don't think it should really take away from the fact that Bentancur, just maybe aside, his final pass was really good today. Again, I know he won't get any real credit because of the fact, obviously, it's a Spurs defeat. But I think him and Skip's pairing was quite encouraging. I thought Skip worked ever so hard before he came off. I think there's a real balance to Spurs' midfield. I think you can't question they gave everything. But really, again, the argument is that final ball, as we keep on saying, and forgive me for saying it, that lot picker that isn't there. What can they do, Rob, if there's not that final pass in there? Because I don't think those guys are there for the final pass. They're the build-up to that final pass, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's it. I thought, midfield, I thought Bentancur was really good again. Actually, every time you watch him, he kind of, every couple of games, he seems to show another little bit to his game. Like today, he had really, he's done it a few times, but he did some lovely, ball carrying, bringing the ball up. There was that great run in, as you say, he overhit the pass at the end, but he literally went past 3 people. He's actually got a bit of a turn of pace on him as well. I thought he was good. I thought Skip looked really good. He started really well, and then I think, but sort of by the end of the first half, you could tell he was getting a bit tired, and he was catching up with him because he was just bombing up. And actually, that was one thing I thought was quite nice today that we sometimes miss a bit in the midfield was he was really flying. On the breaks, he was sprinting right up there, and on the chances we had, he was getting right, sort of into the penalty area and stuff. But yeah, it just kind of. I don't know. I also get the impression with the 3-5-2. I just don't think I don't think they've spent anywhere near as much time practicing it as the 3-4-3, and that I just don't think they look that comfortable. Like Basuma doesn't look that comfortable with it, and you kind of not sure where the creativity is coming from.
Rob, I'll ask you a question: will Basuma outlast Conte?
I think Basuma will come good. I think he'll come good.
Oh,
I think
what a way to dodge it there. That's isn't that experience on the radio there? Wasn't
that was a Boris
radio?
Johnson answer, wasn't it?
It was.
I think he will. I think he will.
Really? Okay. I mean, obviously, he's on a long contract.
I think Basuma will be there for a while.
You back him to find his way into this side regularly, Rob? You back Basuma to find his way in this side regularly with Conte?
I hope so, but then this is a slight thing where I do think it happens a few times at the moment where Conte will say something and everyone will go no, and then it kind of happens and everyone's like, oh, I kind of see what you're talking about. Where it was like where Conte was really against playing 3-5-2, it seemed like, and he kept saying no 3-4-3, 3-4-3, and then we played it against Man U and it was bloody awful. And then today it didn't look great. And it kind of looked a little bit rusty, but yeah, I'd like to think so. I think he's a good player, and he seems like he's got good attitude.
Yeah,
and yeah, I hope so. I think he had a bit of an injury, didn't he, before, and he had COVID at the start of the season. So hopefully, maybe he's just kind of taken a while to get over that. I hope.
Rich, you're desperate to come in there. Go on.
Yes. Who in that team, including Conte, will outlast the next Prime Minister? There's the question.
God. The way we're going at the moment, who knows, Rich? They'll all be gone.
I think there's mayflies that are going to outlast the next one.
Can I also, Rich, you made a comment earlier where you said that Conte has got, he's got to change Basuma as his option there in terms of the way he's playing him. Do you think he will? Listen, we've seen Conte, he's very stubborn. He very rarely changes. TJ's shaking his head there. Will he change? I don't think he will.
I'm going to stick with a political discourse here and say the lady's not for turning. He's not changing. That's what Conte does. It's his blueprint. It's his DNA. So it's fill in or F out, isn't it? Really, it's you've got to play his way. So I don't. Yeah, it's a weird one buying Basuma because he's just not the type of player he wants him to play. I don't know. Maybe he'll change the system slightly to allow him to be a little bit more box to box and a little bit more freedom in his play. But generally, overall, Conte's not going to change. He's just, this is his way of playing. So we're just going to have to get the personnel in to actually, to fit in with him. So I don't know. Basuma maybe it just seems an odd buy because now looking at it, I like him. I really like him, and I can see why we bought him. But I don't know. Perhaps he thought there's a player that I can change into playing my way, and perhaps he will eventually be that player. He just needs time to adapt and change his game. So it's an odd one, Rick. We all just want to see something a little bit more progressive. We're all wanting to see Hill, Basuma being a bit more box to box, a little bit more creativity. That's all we want to see. Is just some more creativity. Wing backs or through the centre, I don't care, but just some more somewhere. Please.
Is a Ricky Sachs line for you. Conscious of time. We're approaching nearly 2 hours. This wasn't meant to be like that. Please blame Spurs and the result. Rob,
Tick it off my bingo card.
Crack, sorry. Tick it off the bingo card. Everyone drink a shot every time I say conscious of time. Just finally on the forwards, coming over to you, TJ. Then we're literally going to do 2 minutes on Sporting and wrap up. Kane, as we said, got his goal today. There was a real lack of quality around him. Sonny, just after he missed that chance in the first half, he had 3 in the opening 15 minutes. It wasn't going to be Sonny's day. And then, as we've seen, Mora coming on, huffing and puffing, looks so ever rusty. Perisic coming off the bench, didn't really add much to the game. Forwards today, TJ, just simply not enough there?
Not enough. And I do think that they're being tasked with an awful lot. I think it was Rob who was mentioning that, actually it was you, Ricky, and I think Rob echoed your thoughts that really our wing backs are very much part of our attack, right? So it's not really up to our central midfielders to provide that final ball. They provide I don't know what the penultimate to a penultimate pass would be, but the one before the penultimate pass, right? So the fact, again, mate, we were talking about this earlier, Ricky, you and I, that our wing backs, the lack of quality in our wing backs is Tottenham's biggest problem by some distance. If you are tasked with flying forward, and both, they're all athletic, right? Royale is athletic and Ryan Sessegnon is athletic. Even Matt Doherty, can get up and down. Again, Rob was saying he can often ghost into the box, yada, yada, yada. All true. Perisic, the same. that final pass has to be perfect. That final pass into our attackers has to be perfect. Again, Sessegnon, you had 2 opportunities to do that. Just put a flat ball across the ground. Again, if you talk to anybody who plays this game, as a defender, the last thing you want to have happen is the ball whipped in at pace on the ground with attackers closing in on you. Because, like, do I try to intercept that? Do I try to kick it out first time? Do I try to mark the approaching man who's coming in? It just makes it very, very difficult. You flood the quote unquote corridor of uncertainty with those passes that are very difficult to defend. If you don't have that in your game, learn it. Again, we have the finest training facility on the planet. You have to go outside of this sport, let alone the continent of Europe, to find a facility that is even close to rivaling that of Tottenham Hotspur. That has got nothing to do with me being a Tottenham Hotspur fan. It is to do with architecture and infrastructure. You have to go out of the sport to find facilities that rival ours. If you don't know how to do that and you are paid an awful lot of money to do it, then learn it. So as far as our attackers go, were they off the ball? Were they not at their best? No, they weren't at their best. Should Sonny have put his laces through that and scored? Yes, he should have done. But I'm not going to sit here and criticize Heung-min Son as a goal scorer. It's really foolish. Same with Harry Kane. They need more support. There's only so much carrying they can do. These are the greatest Sherpas in the history of the Premier League, dragging this club up mountain after mountain after mountain. They should have been, dead on the side of a mountain years ago. But because of these couple of quality players that we have who can put the ball in the back of the net, and ultimately that's what the sport is about, we have somehow flattered to deceive, right? We haven't had a great squad since, again, that peak, 15, 16 season, right? This shirt behind me. And so we have to find a way to provide them with greater service. And I know, Rick, you agree, that has to come from those wing backs. If you can't do it, then go and replace them with something quality. Maybe it's Udoji. Maybe we already have those players. Maybe it's Spence. Maybe we already have them. Maybe Hill can become a quality wing back a la Gareth Bale. He's got fabulous hair. Maybe he could do it.
Yeah, just need the player now. Guys, thank you so much. We are going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners on audio. Take you into the break. You're going to hear from Sam Fonseca from the Sporting podcast, very kindly giving us his preview for that. We're going to give you a quick 5 on that right now and leave you in peace. It's been a tough evening. Thank you so much for all your support tonight. We've had the wonderful Richard Cracknell, the superb TJ Ramini, and the brilliant Rob Howard giving you therapy again on Last Word on Spurs on the back of a really, really tough defeat. Thanks to the boys in nearly 2 hours of their time. Can't thank them enough. Rob, let's start with you. Spurs in a position where if they do beat Sporting, we understand they will secure their place in the knockout stages of the Champions League. Rob, how much do we need to win this game? Just to give everybody a feel-good factor around the club that on the back of 2 disappointing defeats, this could be the pick-me-up potentially.
Oh, massive, yeah. You think how quickly it changes as well. I remember I said to you guys just before we started, like this time last week, I was at the Everton game, and I remember me and my mates were in the Beef Town afterwards going, "Oh, there's something happening here. There's something. This is good. This is really good." And now we're going a week later, like we have to win. We have to win, otherwise it's meltdown mode. But it does feel like that, doesn't it? And I think we should win. I think I'm right in saying they had a couple of players sent off like the last game or something, so they're down a few players. And maybe Romero will be back as well. But yeah, it's a massive game. You can't lose 3 on the bounce, and then the knock-on effect of that as well is suddenly it puts even more pressure on that last game away at Marseille, which is going to be a really tough game. Like their fans are absolutely crazy. And you don't want to go in that. You don't want to go into that an away Champions League game in the final game week needing a result. You don't want to do that at all. So it's absolutely massive.
Rob, before your connection dies on us like Spurs at the end there, can we get a prediction from you?
Oh yeah, it's my prediction is I don't know. I'm going to say I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet. I think that was probably a good bet. So I'm going to say 3-1. I'll go 3-1. Yeah,
3-1.
I agree, TJ. Yeah.
It's mine, TJ. Rob, thank you so much for tonight. No, it's never easy coming on Last Word on Spurs at the back of a defeat. Your record's gone as well. Please accept our forgiveness on that. TJ's record was blemished before he came on to it. It was 100%. That's gone out the window. TJ, it was always going to happen, mate. There was no chance 2 consecutive seasons on Last Word on Spurs you was ever going to keep it. Thoughts on Sporting to come and a prediction from you, please.
Yeah, must-win game, obviously. I was going to say, I think we'll turn up. We have to turn up. Again, God, I'm going to say it again. It's mental. You're all athletic. You're all physical. You're all athletes. Like, do the game. Mrs. is bringing me a cup of tea. Thank you, darling. Look at that. Thank you very much. Very kind. And so it's really, really important that we turn up with the right mentality to win. Do be prepared to die. Conte talks about dying all the time. You kill your opposition or they kill you. It is that important. I know that sounds dramatic, but you have to turn up with that attitude. If you do have that attitude, there's no way you're left flat-footed in your own penalty area by Almiron. You're suddenly, my goodness, it's ridiculous. Almiron, respect to him, he's playing really, really well. But that's not Kylian Mbappe. Turn up ready to do your job, ready to earn your money, earn your place in this side that's in full flux right now. Anyone could be number one on the manager's team sheet right now. So turn up, get the basics done, die at the 90th whistle. When they blow their whistle, collapse like you did when we were training in South Korea. Yeah. When Jean-Pierre was around, rest his soul, right? Yeah. Where did that mentality go? He passed away. We had his shirt at the game. We played really well, and then finish, and then we stopped running. Like, come with that desire, and then win, lose, or draw. At least you'll have our respect if that means anything to these players. So I think we'll go out there, get the job done, 3-1, and we'll top the Champions League group. I hope.
TJ, thanks so much, mate, for the therapy tonight. I really appreciate it, mate. Honestly,
and genuinely, again, a real privilege to be on with you both, Richard. And thank you so much.
We loved it, mate. Thank you so much. Cracks, never easy. I know it's never easy doing Last Word on Spurs. Post a defeat straight afterwards, mate. Thank you so much again for all your support. You're back with me on Wednesday night. What do you think you're going to be reviewing? What do you expect, Rich, on Wednesday night from Tottenham? What's going to happen?
I think he might have rested a couple of players today. He was talking about Romero being a bit 50-50, and I think there's one or two maybe got rested today ahead of that, because get the job done and we're through. We're through to the next round, and it's that balance again, isn't it? Get through to the next round. It's big money, big money getting through these rounds, and it's a sad indictment, but that's the balances, the checks and balances that clubs do now. It's not win your next game. It's a lot of it's done on a balance sheet as well as a team sheet, isn't it? So I think Conte's rested a couple today ahead of Wednesday, and we get a couple of key players back. We should win that. Just keep Marcus Edwards quiet. He looked,
very true.
He looked at danger against us, didn't he? Keep him quiet, and we should win that, and then we're through. Then we're done. So, but just a quick big up, Rick, to everybody that's tuned in tonight. It's not just us turning up and rattling our nonsense off. There's people, for 2 hours, they tune in and they come up to us in Beavertown and round the ground, and even down the shops, people come up and speak to you about Last Word on Spurs at the Legends Nights. It's brilliant. I love it. People get so much from it, and that's why we all do it. So, once again, everybody that's turned up here tonight and at the game today, I thought they were magnificent. The crowd today, when we got that one back,
never easy,
right behind them, away games. And that's people actually making the effort to get to games and spending good money on them as well. So, there's a few things wrong with the club at the moment. Nothing terrible, but one thing that isn't wrong is the fans of this club. Never has been, never will be. Always been absolutely spot on.
Well said, man. Bravo.
Yeah.
Well said.
Again, guys, thank you so much for all the love for tonight. We know it's never easy. Look, Rich, I'll let you answer this one. Aditya says, I thought we were going to see more shit quizzes this season. We're only seeing shit on the pitch. Can you answer that, Rich?
All right. I'm going to create one for Wednesday night, Rick. Keep it short, and I'll slip in a quiz if we win. If we get through, I'll give you a Sporting Lisbon-based shit quiz. All right.
I thought Rich would get a warning from an audience member rather than a contributor. Gotta love it. Rich, thank you so much. Can I just say from the wonderful Richard Cracknell, from the superb TJ Ramini, from the brilliant radio Rob Howard, Rob back on the airwaves tomorrow morning, a very early start for Rob. We've taken him way past his bedtime now. Guys, thank you so much for all your support. We're back with you on Wednesday night for instant post-match reaction to Spurs, hopefully qualifying against Sporting in the Champions League. Thank you again. And as always, please keep safe, keep well. Come on, you Spurs.